Morning, everybody. The Global Compact for Migration was signed yesterday. If you want to sign the petition against it, you can sign here. Link is in the description. Sign at the top, or scroll down, see how many signatures we've got, and sign at the bottom. Don't forget to click the link in the signature, or your signature will not count. And I've had some questions. This petition runs out February 21st, and I've had questions. Why is this after the compact is signed, and blah 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 blah. And I agree, and I honestly said I didn't know. I do know now. So here is the House of Commons compendium procedure on presenting petitions. So here's the reason why it's going till February. It has to wait for 120 days. And I'll read this here. It says, petitions for certification should be sent by the member of the Clerk of Petitions, Private Member's Business Office, Room 134C, Center Block, or submitted via electronic petition system on the House of Commons website. A paper petition meeting the requirements for certification will be returned to the member with the certificate attached, signed by the Clerk of Petitions. An electronic petition is subject to an initial verification. Once it is published on the House of Commons website, it is open for signature for 120 days. There you go. If the petition receives 500 valid signatures, it can be certified for the Clerk of Petitions for presentation in the House of Commons. If not, the petition is deemed withdrawn and cannot be presented. Okay, so our petition crosses the 500 signature threshold. More signatures makes a more valid petition. The more signatures we have, the more ammunition this petition will have. Do I think it's going to change Justin Trudeau's mind? Absolutely not. Is it a good idea to sign? Oh, probably. It'll take you 10 seconds, right? And here's what will happen with the petition after February 21st. Government response to petition committee selection. The rules of the House require that the government reply to a petition within 45 calendar days. If a petition remains without a response at the expiration of this time, a standing committee of the House is required to look into the government's failure to respond. The member is then informed of the absence of response and is sent a form to be signed by the member, on which the member must indicate the committee to which the government failed to respond will be referred. The form must accompany the certified petition when the petition is presented in the House. Okay, so the petition will be presented in the House. It will be presented in the House by Maxime Bernier, as he's the sponsor. He did not write this petition. He's the sponsor. I incorrectly said he wrote it. He is the sponsor of this petition. It was put in October 21st and 120 days from October 24th, and 120 days from October 24th is presumably February 21st. And there are other rules governing that too. It's got to be like if 120 days falls on a weekend, it's going to be the next Monday or something like that. So it may not be exactly that, but that is the procedure. That is the reason it goes till February 21st, and that is what we'll be expecting. What I'll be expecting is the government to ignore it and a standing committee to be put together, and then the government to sit there and do more word salad, nonsensical euphemisms and platitudes put together in some kind of badly formed puzzle. Maybe Justin Trudeau will say, oh, and the news will forget about it and say, migration is good. That's what they'll say. Mr. Bernier is quoting about this, and he says, and this was December 11th, 5:22 a.m., early riser. 1, Liberal government adopts UN language. We don't have an immigration system anymore, but a migration system. Immigration refers to foreigners coming to live in our country. Migration refers to people going from one place to another. There is no distinction between here and abroad. 2, that's the goal of the Global Compact, to normalize and facilitate mass migration under UN supervision, ultimately remove the distinction between citizen and migrant, and give everyone equal rights and equal access to services. Note also the hashtag #4migration. 3, an immigration system is a set of rules by which we select foreigners and welcome them as citizens for the benefit of our country. A migration system is a way to deal with the movement of people crossing our borders. We've just gone from first to second type of policy. And so that's awful. That's terrible. And yeah, here's a link to the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, Regular Migration, the Newsroom of Canada, and it's just a confirmation that we're signing. It frustrates me that a petition is all we can do. It frustrates me that more MPs aren't crossing the floor. It frustrates me when the leader of the opposition isn't daily hammering people publicly on this and talking about what's happening in France, what's happening across Belgium. It's spreading in Europe. And I was talking with people on Twitter today about the yellow vests happening in England, the United Kingdom, if Theresa May chooses to ignore the Brexit that was voted for 2 years ago. And the Twitter trolls came out in force. Apparently I don't know what I'm talking about, and the people who want to stay in the European Union side is much stronger than I think. Sure, I believe that. No, I don't. So but it's interesting because that's the tactic. It's to shame. It's to tell you that you don't have any standing. It's to tell you you're subhuman. The amount of people who told me that they were less than human and they didn't deserve a say anyway. It's like, wow, like this is straight out of like Nazi communist. If you look at the history books, read the Gulag Archipelago, get it on audiobook. It's very telling. And listening to the first part, it's in 2 parts. Listening to the first part is listening to what's happening right now. It's incredible. It's incredible. The hijacking of language, the divisive identity politics, the us versus them positioning. So it's interesting. And watching the Yellow Jackets, somebody called me out on Twitter for being anonymous, saying, oh, you don't have your name on your tweet, and how can you say that the Yellow Jackets will do that? You won't even put your name to it. And my response was like, do you think that the Yellow Jackets have a name tag on their yellow vest or whatever? Like, do you think that's what's happening? They're angry that their government's not representing them. I'm angry that my government's not representing me. And I'm angry that the press is not reporting that. And they're handing our sovereignty right over to the United Nations. And there's only one politician talking about it, and that's Maxime Bernier. Regularly talking about it, I should say. Michelle Rempel talks about it. I hope that Michelle Rempel continues to talk about it. She's a powerful voice for this, and I hope she doesn't quiet down. She did a video yesterday about all of this stuff. So it's good to see. We need more of it. We need more people standing up and speaking out about how terrible these policies are. And if you haven't watched the Gumballs and migration video, it's linked in the description. It is an important 6-minute watch. Watch it. Okay, on to the next story. Spencer Fernando is talking about Omar Khadr. Omar Khadr says he's suffering. He wants permission to travel to Saudi Arabia and speak to his pro-Al-Qaeda sister. So his terrorist sister is in Saudi Arabia, and he wants to go there. And he's petitioning the government because he's out on bail. Well, he's not out on bail. Sorry, he's out, and he has his $10.5 million, so he can easily afford a plane ticket there. He just wants to go to a pilgrimage to, terrorist Saudi Arabia. The former terrorist who admits to killing U.S. soldiers. Right? This is insanity. Why? What? CTV reporting. This is the I earlier said this was a newsroom saying that we had signed, but this is the link that I was using for that. So and CTV is reporting that nearly 85% of the UN nations back the migration deal, not the US and not Canada either. CTV, your news reports are fake news lies. And there's a link to CTV News. I'm not going to give them a click though, because I wanted to point this out. If you haven't seen my video talking about how replacement is the plan, this is the 150 StatsCan website, and there's 3 scenarios for migration essentially, and one is a low population, one is a medium, and one is a high. So L, M1, and H are the different ones. Okay, and this is the most interesting part of that video, in my opinion. But replacement is the goal here, and it's the stated goal. Like this is the plan. There is no plan for a baby boom. There is no plan to try and increase the Canadian birth rate. The plan is our birth rate is going down, and if we want to maintain the tax base, we have to import that amount of people. So by 2063, that's about 45 years from now, our growth will not be 90% from immigration. 90%. And here's the StatsCan website. The link is in the description. I'll read the important part. Okay. For most of the 20th century, natural increase was the main driver of population growth in Canada. However, in the middle 1990s, a shift occurred when immigration increased while fertility remained relatively unchanged. As a result, migratory increased, the balance of immigrants minus emigration. Emigration is when we leave for another country, right? Like, so the immigrants coming in minus the number of people in Canada moving to the US or moving to England or wherever, or Saudi Arabia, right, Mr. Khadr? That's emigration. Okay. Has been the main source of population growth in Canada. For the last 2 decades, in 2012, 2013, migratory increases accounted for just over 2/3 of population growth. It's already at 67%, while national increase accounted for the remaining 32%. So our children in Canada, and that's everybody's children, Canadian children, account for 32% of our growth. 67% of our growth is coming from immigrants. Is that insane? The next part. Migratory increases will continue to be the key factor behind Canada's population growth in the coming years, according to all projection scenarios. However, its importance would vary from one scenario to the next. In 62-63, migration would account for 90.8% of the total population growth in the M1 scenario, the medium growth scenario, all population growth in the low growth scenario, and 65.2% of the total population growth in the high growth scenario. And it talks about in this that the high growth scenario is high because of an increased fertility rate. And the fertility rate they're talking about is not Canadians' fertility rate, natural-born Canadians' fertility rate. They're talking about the migrants' fertility rate, immigrants' fertility rate. They're talking about the populations they're bringing in have more children, and so the population of Canada will grow. This is the policy. I can't understate this enough. This is the plan. Do we want this plan? When did we talk about this? When did we have a debate about opening our borders? We didn't. And only 85% of the UN nations back this deal. That is a big deal when 15% of the nations don't sign on to the UN deal. That's a big deal. Not, oh, look, everybody, a strong majority is agreeing with the United Nations. This kind of reporting is dishonest and hurts Canadians. Finally, Toronto Sun is reporting about the UN Compact. Sun Laurie says concern over UN Refugee Pact widespread and growing. Yes, look at the concern on these gentlemen's faces. Where are the women and children, right? The last story today is a yellow vest story, and Mr. Marcon, and I'm going to let us listen to this 36 seconds, but this is a tweet out. Watch, Macron is making promises he can't keep in what looks like a hostage video. He is shown begging for his job and telling the French people how nice he is, how kind he is, and how much money and benefits he wants to give people. He's literally telling them, I'm going to give you a mandatory Christmas bonus. Please stop rioting. Please stop. That's what's happening here. Watch.
Act very fast in order to resolve this problem. I'm going to ask the government to follow up to make sure that all the students, when they graduate, they are able to find work. And I want to see an immediate and real improvement in the salaries. And this is why I'm ordering an end-of-year bonus for all employees without any tax. How we treat you is a very important part of our nation. In 2019, you're going to see this.
Yeah, sure. In 2019, 4 legs good, 2 legs better, right? The pigs are going to live in the farmer's house just because there's not enough room in the barn. That's why. We treat you well in the barn, right? I don't know, Mr. Macron. I think the yellow vests see through the fear in those eyes. I certainly do. So there we are, guys. The Migration Pact has been signed, and Canada's course is charted. 90% of our growth coming from outside of our country. 45 years. Is it already written? Is it decided? Now, I will caution you. Read the cautionary note. It says, this is not meant to be predictive. It's not meant to be interpreted as a prediction about what will happen in the future. However, when we're looking at the current trends, and 67% of our growth is currently from migratory increases, it would stand to reason after signing the Global Compact for Migration that is going to accelerate and increase as well, from 90% to 100% of our population growth. And I certainly would like to have a conversation about maybe generating a Canadian baby boom. I would certainly like to have a conversation about where our growth comes from and why it's necessary, and have everyone in Canada participate. The media, the politicians, not Justin Trudeau. He can sit out. I'm sure he wouldn't be interested anyway, right? There's no ponies. There's no flashing lights. There's no spaceships. This is a serious policy conversation. He wouldn't be interested. Okay, thanks everybody for watching. Have a great day. Check out the People's Party of Canada.ca.